The trail was 100 miles long. It crossed rivers, scaled walls, entered sealed buildings, and passed through haystacks without disturbing a single piece of straw. And whatever made it walked on only 2 legs. Imagine you are a farmer in the English county of Devon. It is the morning of February 9, 1855. You slept through a heavy snowfall the night before, the kind that muffles the world and makes everything feel still. You pull on your coat before dawn. You walk out into the white, and there in the untouched snow, you see a trail of marks. Small. Hoof-shaped. Perfectly spaced, one directly in front of the other, like something walking a tightrope. You follow them a few feet. Then a few more. You look up and realize the trail stretches further than you can see. You call for your neighbor. Your neighbor calls for his. By midday, half the county is standing in the snow trying to understand what they are looking at. By nightfall, no one has an answer. They never would. This is the case of the devil's footprints. And after 170 years, it still does not have one. The facts first, plain and stripped of everything but themselves. On the night of February 8 into February 9, 1855, a snowstorm passed over South Devon in England. When morning came, residents in over 30 towns and villages discovered a continuous trail of hoof-like prints pressed into the snow. The prints measured approximately 4 inches long and 3 inches wide. They were spaced 8 to 16 inches apart, placed in a perfect single file line, 1 foot directly ahead of the other. Most 4-legged animals print in pairs. This printed like one. A single, deliberate, unbroken stride. The trail covered somewhere between 40 and 100 miles depending on the account, and the accounts multiply the more you read them. It crossed the estuary of the river Exe, which was frozen over in places but not all of them. It appeared on both sides of walls that were 12 feet high, with no disturbance at the top. It went up to the front door of a house in Topsham, stopped, then reappeared at the back. It reportedly entered a drainpipe only 6 inches wide and emerged from the other end. In the village of Woodbury, the prints were found on a rooftop. In Dawlish, they stopped at the edge of a haystack and continued on the other side, the hay itself untouched. The Reverend G.M. Musgrave wrote about the prints in a letter. A local schoolmaster made measurements and sketches. The story ran in the Illustrated London News on February 16, 1855, and the name attached itself immediately. The Devil's Footprints. Because people needed to call it something. Because the alternative was admitting that they had no language for it at all. Think about that for a moment. These were Victorian farming people. Practical, grounded, unsentimental. These were not people prone to collective hysteria. A schoolmaster brought a ruler. A reverend wrote careful, measured prose. They were trying to be rational. And they still ended up with the word devil. In the village of Exmouth, an elderly woman named Mrs. Elias Pugsley reportedly refused to leave her house for 3 days after seeing the prints outside her door. Her daughter later told a neighbor that her mother had kept every letter she ever received, that she had a tin box under her bed with decades of correspondence inside, that she was not a fearful person. Not a person who frightened easily. She never spoke about what she saw in any detail anyone could record. She just stopped going outside. The theories arrived quickly. They have never really stopped arriving. The most persistent rational explanation is a natural one. Some researchers believe the prints were made by a wood mouse or a dormouse, moving in a particular bounding gait that places the hind feet directly into the tracks left by the front feet, creating the illusion of a bipedal trail. This is called perfect register. It happens. It is real. But here is what this theory cannot explain: the scale. Dozens of independent witnesses across dozens of separate locations, separated by miles of open farmland, all describing the same size, the same spacing, the same single file line. A wood mouse does not cover 100 miles in a single night. And a wood mouse does not climb drainpipes 6 inches wide without leaving any other sign. The second theory is that it was a hoax. One or several people walking with some kind of hoof-shaped tool, pressing it into the snow at measured intervals. It sounds plausible until you map the terrain. The trail crossed the frozen estuary. It appeared on rooftops. It passed through locations that would have required the hoaxer to be in two places at once, or to move at a speed no person could maintain for 100 miles in a Devon winter night. And for what purpose? What was the intended audience? The newspapers were a week away from reporting it. There was no mechanism in 1855 for a hoax to reach 30 villages simultaneously. Who exactly was this for? A third theory, proposed seriously in the 20th century, is that the prints were made by an escaped animal, possibly a kangaroo or a wallaby. There were private menageries in England at the time. Animals did occasionally escape. A wallaby's gait can, in certain conditions, produce a linear track. This is the theory that feels most satisfying for about 45 seconds. Then you remember the haystacks, the sealed buildings, the drain pipe. No animal of any known species moves through solid matter. The final theory is the one nobody says out loud in academic papers. That something passed over Devon that night that we do not have a category for. Not supernatural in any religious sense, necessarily. Just genuinely outside the frame of what we currently understand. Researchers who have spent years on this case sometimes arrive, quietly, at this position. Not because they believe in the devil, but because they ran out of other doors. Here is what stays with me. The prints were described as sharp. Not blurred by wind. Not softened by settling. They were pressed clearly into the snow as if made with deliberate force, each one identical to the last. Whatever made them was not wandering. It was not fleeing or hunting or lost. The consistent spacing, the single file line, the unbroken continuity across impossible terrain. It moves like something that knew exactly where it was going. Where was it going? The trail reportedly ended somewhere in the vicinity of Littleham, near Exmouth, though accounts differ and no one could follow it to a definitive conclusion. It did not end at a body. It did not end at a building that was found opened or disturbed. It did not end at anything, as far as anyone has been able to determine. It just stopped. As if whatever made it stepped out of the snow. Or out of the world entirely. 100 miles. A single night. Walls, water, haystacks, rooftops, sealed pipes. Perfect register. Perfect spacing. No disturbance except the prints themselves. You keep coming back to that. The haystacks especially. A haystack is loose and yielding. It would take almost nothing to push through one, to leave some evidence of passage. Hay displaced. A hollow. Some impression. There was none. The hay was untouched on all sides. The prints appeared on one side and continued on the other as if the stack simply did not exist. As if whatever made them was not entirely present in the physical world we inhabit. Or was present in it differently. That is the detail I cannot close the door on. Everything else you can argue. But the haystacks suggest that whatever this was did not experience solid matter the same way you and I do. And if that is true, then every theory we have, rational or otherwise, is already working from the wrong set of assumptions. We do not know what made the devil's footprints. We do not know why they appeared that one night and never again. We do not know where the trail ended or what the trail meant. We do not know why Mrs. Pugsley stopped going outside. We just know that something walked through Devon in the snow. Walked through it like Devon was barely there. If you have a theory, leave it in the comments. One word. That is the challenge. I will pin the best one. Share this with someone who deserves to feel what you just felt. If you want more stories like this one, this channel is a collection of everything history forgot to explain. The gaps. The silences. The things that happened and were recorded and still make no sense. That is what we do here. Stay curious. Stay weird.